John Miller loved his home. It was not a big house, but it was perfect for him. The best part was the swimming pool in his backyard. John had saved money for 10 years to build this pool. Every day after work, he would swim and relax by the water. The pool was his happy place. John lived in a friendly neighborhood called Oakwood Gardens. Most of the families had been there for many years. There were the Taylors next door with their 3 kids. The Paddles lived across the street with their teenage twins. The Johnsons were an older couple who had been in the neighborhood the longest. Everyone knew each other and would wave and chat when they met outside. When John first built his pool 2 summers ago, he invited some neighbors over for a small party. He grilled burgers and hot dogs. The kids played in the water while the adults talked and enjoyed cold drinks. It was a perfect day. John felt good about sharing his new pool with friends. "Your pool is amazing, John," said Mrs. Taylor. "The kids are having so much fun." "Thanks," John said with a smile. "It's nice to see everyone enjoying it." What John didn't know was that this friendly gesture would soon become a big problem. A few weeks after the party, John came home from work early. He was surprised to see Mrs. Taylor and her 3 children splashing in his pool. John hadn't given them permission to use it when he wasn't home. He felt uncomfortable but didn't say anything that day. He didn't want to seem mean. "Oh, John, I hope you don't mind," Mrs. Taylor said when she saw him. "It's so hot today." And the kids were begging to swim. "It's fine this time," John said with a forced smile. "But maybe call me next time." Mrs. Taylor nodded, but John could tell she wasn't really listening. After that day, more neighbors started using John's pool when he wasn't home. Sometimes he would come back from work to find wet towels on his chairs or empty soda cans by the pool. Once, he even found a broken pool toy floating in the water. John tried to be nice about it. He put a sign near the pool that said, "Please clean up after using the pool. Thank you." But people ignored it. One hot Saturday afternoon, John was planning to relax by his pool. He had worked hard all week and was looking forward to some quiet time. But when he went to his backyard, he couldn't believe what he saw. There were at least 15 people in and around his pool. Kids were jumping and splashing. Adults were sitting in his chairs. Someone had even brought a big cooler filled with drinks and put it on his patio table. John stood frozen, watching the scene in shock. None of these people had asked if they could use his pool. Some of them he barely knew. They must be friends of his neighbors. Mrs. Patel noticed him standing there and waved. "John, come join the fun. We're having a great time." John felt his face getting hot. This was his home, his pool that he had paid for. Now it seemed like the whole neighborhood thought it was a public swimming place. "I'm sorry," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "But I didn't give anyone permission to use my pool today." The music someone had brought suddenly seemed too loud. People stopped talking and looked at John. "We thought you wouldn't mind," said Mr. Taylor. "You've let people use it before." "Yes, when I invited them," John said. His hands were shaking a little. He had never been good at confrontation. "This is my private property." Mrs. Johnson frowned. "Don't be selfish, John. It's just a pool, and it's a hot day." John couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had worked hard for his pool, paid for all the cleaning and chemicals, and now he was being called selfish for wanting to use his own property. He knew then that something had to change. This couldn't continue. That night, John couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about all the people in his pool. He felt angry and sad at the same time. This pool was his dream. He had worked extra hours and saved every penny to build it. Now he didn't even feel happy using it anymore. The next morning, John sat at his kitchen table with a cup of coffee. He looked out at his pool through the window. The water was still messy from yesterday. There were towels left on chairs and empty chip bags on the ground. No one had cleaned up. John spent 2 hours fixing the pool. He cleaned the water, picked up trash, and put the chairs back in place. While he worked, he thought about what to do. "I could put up a fence," he said to himself. "But that would cost a lot of money." He could call the police about people coming on his property without asking, but that might make his neighbors hate him. He still had to live next to these people every day. Just as John finished cleaning, he saw Billy Taylor, the 10-year-old son of his next-door neighbors, peeking over the fence. "Hi, Mr. Miller. Is the pool open today?" Billy asked with a big smile. John sighed. "Not today, Billy. I'm sorry." Billy's face fell. "But it's so hot, and Mom said we could swim." "Did your mom talk to me about it?" John asked. "No," Billy said, "but she said you never mind." That was the problem. Everyone thought they could use his pool whenever they wanted. No one asked anymore. No one helped pay for pool chemicals or cleaning. No one even said thank you. Later that afternoon, John's phone rang. It was Mrs. Taylor. "John, Billy said you wouldn't let him swim today," she said. Her voice sounded upset. "Is something wrong?" John took a deep breath. "Yes, something is wrong. People are using my pool without asking me. No one cleans up. I came home yesterday to find a party in my backyard that I didn't know about." "Oh, that." Mrs. Taylor laughed. "That was just a few friends cooling off. We would have invited you if you were home." John couldn't believe what he was hearing. It was his pool, but they would have invited him. "That's not the point," John said. "This is my private property. I paid for the pool. I pay for the cleaning and chemicals. I'm responsible if anyone gets hurt." "So you're saying we can't use your pool anymore?" Mrs. Taylor asked. She sounded angry now. "That's not very neighborly, John." After the call, John felt worse. Now he was the bad guy for wanting control over his own property. That evening, John called his friend Mark, who lived in another town. John told him everything that was happening. "That's crazy," Mark said. "They have no right to use your pool without asking." "But now everyone's mad at me," John said. "Mrs. Taylor is telling people I'm selfish. Mrs. Johnson gave me an angry look when I got my mail earlier." "You need to set clear rules," Mark suggested. "It's your property. You get to decide how it's used." John knew Mark was right. He needed to do something. But what? The next day was Sunday. John was working in his garden when he heard splashing sounds. He looked up to see the Patel twins in his pool. Their parents were sitting in his chairs, reading books. John put down his gardening tools and walked over to them. "Good morning," he said, trying to stay calm. "Oh, hello, John," Mr. Patel said. "Hope you don't mind." The kids wanted to swim. There it was again. No one asked first. They just assumed it was okay. "Actually, I do mind," John said. His heart was beating fast. He hated confrontation. "From now on, I need people to ask before using my pool." Mrs. Patel looked surprised. "But everyone uses your pool. It's been this way all summer." "That doesn't make it right," John said. "This is my property." The Patels gathered their things and left without saying much. Their faces showed they were not happy. John watched them go and felt a knot in his stomach. He didn't want to be mean. He didn't want his neighbors to dislike him. But he also didn't want to be taken advantage of anymore. He needed a better plan. Something that would work for everyone. That night, John sat at his kitchen table with a pen and paper. He needed a plan that was fair to everyone. After thinking for a long time, he had an idea. He would make a schedule for his pool. John made a simple chart. He divided each day into 3 parts: morning, afternoon, and evening. Then he wrote which neighbors could use the pool during each time. He also kept some times just for himself. At the bottom of the paper, John wrote a few simple rules. 1. Ask John before using the pool. 2. Clean up after swimming. 3. No more than 6 people at a time. 4. Children must have an adult watching them. 5. Help pay for pool chemicals, $10 per family each month. John felt good about his plan. It was fair. Everyone could still enjoy the pool, but there would be rules and order. The next morning, John made copies of his schedule. He took a deep breath and went to talk to his neighbors. His first stop was the Taylor house. Mrs. Taylor opened the door. She looked surprised to see John. "Good morning," John said. "I have an idea I want to share with you about the pool." Mrs. Taylor didn't smile, but she let John in. They sat in the living room, and John explained his schedule. "So we can only use your pool on Tuesday afternoons and Saturday mornings?" Mrs. Taylor asked. She didn't look happy. "Yes," John said, "and everyone needs to follow the rules on this list." Mrs. Taylor looked at the paper for a long time. "And we have to pay you $10 a month." "Yes," John said. "Pool chemicals are expensive. It's fair that everyone who uses the pool helps pay for them." "I'll have to talk to my husband about this," Mrs. Taylor said. She didn't say whether she liked the idea or not. John left feeling worried. Would his neighbors accept his plan, or would they just get more angry? His next stop was the Johnson house. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson were both in their garden. "Hello, John," Mrs. Johnson said. Her voice was cold. She had been giving John angry looks since he asked people to leave his pool. John explained his schedule to the Johnsons. To his surprise, they seemed to like the idea. "That makes sense," Mr. Johnson said. "Everyone knows when they can use the pool, and no one will be surprised." "And the $10 is very fair," Mrs. Johnson added. "Pool chemicals cost much more than that." John felt better after talking to the Johnsons. Maybe his plan would work after all. By lunchtime, John had talked to all his neighbors. The responses were mixed. Some people, like the Johnsons, thought the schedule was a good idea. Others, like the Taylors, weren't sure. The Patels said they would rather not use the pool at all if there were so many rules. That afternoon, John printed out a big copy of the schedule. He hung it on a board near his pool. He also bought a small box with a lock. He put the pool cleaning tools inside the box. Each family that agreed to his rules would get the code to open the box. The first day of the new schedule was a Tuesday. The Taylors were allowed to use the pool that afternoon. John was nervous as he watched the clock. Would they come? Would they follow the rules? At 2:00, there was a knock at John's door. It was Mrs. Taylor and her 3 children. "We're here for our pool time," she said. She didn't sound excited, but at least she had knocked on the door first. That was progress. John smiled. "Great. Let me show you where the cleaning tools are kept." He showed Mrs. Taylor the locked box and gave her the code. He explained how to use the pool skimmer to clean leaves from the water. Mrs. Taylor listened carefully. "This is actually a very nice setup, John," she said. "Thank you for letting us use your pool." For the first time in weeks, John felt hopeful. Maybe his plan would work. Maybe he could have a good relationship with his neighbors and still protect his property. But as he watched the Taylor children jump into the pool, he wondered if everyone would follow the rules. And what would he do if they didn't? For the first week, John's plan seemed to work well. The Taylors used the pool during their time slots. They followed the rules and even cleaned up after themselves. The Johnsons came during their time too. They were careful and respectful of John's property. John felt proud of his solution. He could still be a good neighbor while protecting his pool. The $10 from each family helped with the pool chemicals. It wasn't much money, but it made John feel that his neighbors valued what he was sharing. On Saturday morning, John was drinking coffee on his patio. It was the Wilsons' time to use the pool. They were a family that had moved to the neighborhood only a few months ago. They had 2 teenage boys who were always full of energy. At exactly 10:00, Mr. Wilson and his sons arrived at John's gate. "Good morning, John," Mr. Wilson called. "Beautiful day for a swim." John smiled and waved. The Wilsons always followed the schedule perfectly. They were John's favorite pool users. Later that afternoon, it was John's private time. He was looking forward to a quiet swim. But as he walked to his pool, he saw something that made him stop. The Patel family was in his pool. All 4 of them were swimming and splashing. They had a radio playing loud music. There were snacks and drinks on the table. John was confused. The Patels had told him they didn't want to use the pool if there were rules. They hadn't signed up for any time slots, and right now it was supposed to be John's private time. John walked over to the pool. "Excuse me," he said. "I'm sorry, but this is not your scheduled time." Mr. Patel looked up, surprised. "Oh, John, we saw the pool was empty, so we thought it would be okay." "But you didn't sign up for the schedule," John said. "And you didn't ask me first." Mrs. Patel frowned. "We didn't think we needed to," she said. "The schedule seems so strict. We just wanted to swim when no one else was using the pool." John took a deep breath. He didn't want to be rude, but he also needed to stand up for himself. "I made the schedule so everyone would know when they could use the pool," he explained. "Right now is my private time. I was planning to swim." The paddles looked embarrassed. They got out of the pool slowly and gathered their things. "We're sorry, John," Mr. Patel said. "We should have asked you first." After they left, John felt bad. He didn't enjoy making his neighbors leave, but he also knew his system only worked if everyone followed the rules. The next day was Sunday. According to the schedule, it was the tailor's afternoon time slot. John was working in his garden when he heard lots of voices and splashing. He looked over at his pool and was shocked. There were at least 15 people there. He recognized the tailors, but there were many people he had never seen before. John walked over to the pool. Mrs. Taylor saw him coming and waved. "John, come meet my sister and her family," she said. "They're visiting from out of town. I hope it's okay that they're using the pool too." John didn't know what to say. The rules said no more than 6 people at a time. There were way more than 6 people here now. "Mrs. Taylor," John said quietly, "could I talk to you for a minute?" They walked a few steps away from the others. "The rules say no more than 6 people at a time," John reminded her. "There are at least 15 people in my pool right now." Mrs. Taylor's smile disappeared. "But they're my family," she said. "They're only visiting for the weekend." The kids were so excited about the pool. "I understand," John said. "But if I make exceptions, then the rules don't mean anything." Mrs. Taylor's face turned red. "You're being unreasonable," she said loudly. "It's just water. It's not like we're hurting anything." Some of the other adults looked over at them. John felt his face getting hot. He didn't want to make a scene, but he also didn't want to give up on his rules so quickly. "I'm sorry," he said, "but I need everyone to follow the same rules." Mrs. Taylor stormed off. She said something to the others, and they all started getting out of the pool, giving John angry looks. John felt terrible. His plan was falling apart. Instead of making things better, it seemed to be making things worse. That night, John couldn't sleep again. He kept thinking about Mrs. Taylor's angry face and all the people giving him mean looks. He was trying to be fair, but some neighbors didn't seem to care about his rules. The next morning, John checked his mailbox and found a note. It was from Mrs. Johnson. "Dear John," the note said, "we want to thank you for letting us use your pool. We always enjoy our time there. Don't worry about what happened yesterday. Some people just don't understand about respecting other people's property. Sincerely, the Johnsons." John smiled as he read the note. At least some neighbors understood what he was trying to do. But later that day, John got a phone call from Mr. Patel. "John, have you seen what Mrs. Taylor is saying on the neighborhood social media page?" Mr. Patel asked. John hadn't seen it. He rarely used social media. "She's telling everyone that you kicked her family out of your pool," Mr. Patel explained. "She's saying you're selfish and that no one should use your pool anymore." John felt sick to his stomach. He thanked Mr. Patel for telling him and hung up the phone. That afternoon, John sat in his living room, thinking. His pool had become a source of stress instead of joy. His plan wasn't working as well as he had hoped. Some neighbors followed the rules, but others didn't. And now Mrs. Taylor was turning people against him. Just then, John heard a knock at his door. It was Mr. Wilson, the neighbor who always followed the schedule perfectly. "Got a minute to talk, John?" Mr. Wilson asked. They sat on John's porch. Mr. Wilson seemed uncomfortable. "I've heard what's happening," Mr. Wilson said. "I think your pool schedule is a good idea, but it only works if everyone follows the rules." "I know," John sighed. "I don't know what to do anymore." Mr. Wilson thought for a moment. "What if we had a neighborhood meeting? We could talk about the pool situation together. Maybe if people heard from other neighbors who support your rules, they would understand better." John wasn't sure if a meeting would help, but he was willing to try anything at this point. The next evening, many neighbors gathered in John's backyard. John was nervous as he explained his feelings. "I built this pool with my own money," he said. "I'm happy to share it, but I need everyone to respect some basic rules. The schedule helps make sure everyone gets a turn, and the rules keep my property safe." Mrs. Taylor stood up next. "The rules are too strict," she said. "6 people is not enough when family visits, and why should we pay to use a pool that's just sitting there most of the time?" Some people nodded, agreeing with Mrs. Taylor. Then Mr. Johnson stood up. He was the oldest person in the neighborhood, and everyone respected him. "When I was young," Mr. Johnson said, "neighbors helped each other. But helping doesn't mean taking advantage. John isn't charging us to rent a pool. He's asking for $10 to help with chemicals. That's very fair." Mrs. Wilson spoke next. "My family loves our pool time," she said. "We always make sure to clean up after ourselves. It's not hard to follow simple rules." The meeting continued for an hour. Some neighbors supported John's rules. Others thought they were too strict. By the end, John wasn't sure if anything had been solved. As people were leaving, a man named Dave Miller approached John. Dave lived a few houses down and had never used John's pool. "I have an idea that might help," Dave said. "I work for a company that installs pool covers. A good cover would keep people out when you're not home or when it's not their scheduled time." John was interested. "How much does something like that cost?" "They're not cheap," Dave admitted, "but I could get you a discount. And I was thinking, what if all the families who use your pool helped pay for it? It would be a one-time cost, and then everyone could still use the pool according to the schedule." For the first time in weeks, John felt hopeful. Maybe this was the solution he had been looking for. "That's a great idea," John said. "Would you help me present it to the neighbors?" Dave nodded. "Of course. Let's work out the details and then call another meeting." John looked at his pool. With a cover that could be locked, he would have real control over when people used his pool. Maybe he could have both peace and good relationships with his neighbors after all. The next day, John and Dave met for coffee. Dave brought pictures and information about different pool covers. "This one is the best," Dave said, pointing to a picture of a strong, dark blue cover. "It's made of tough material that can hold the weight of several adults. No one can fall in by accident, and it has a lock system that only opens with a special key." John looked at the price and frowned. "That's expensive," he said. "Yes," Dave agreed. "But if we divide the cost among all the families who use your pool, it's not so bad. And it will last for many years." They worked out a plan. Each family who wanted to use the pool would pay $75 toward the cover. In return, they would get a key to open it during their scheduled times. The cover would be locked at all other times. "This way, you don't have to be the bad guy anymore," Dave explained. "The cover itself will enforce the rules." John liked this idea. He was tired of having to tell people they couldn't use his pool. That weekend, John and Dave called another neighborhood meeting. More people came this time, curious about the new plan. John explained about the pool cover and how it would work with the schedule. "Each family that contributes $75 will get a key," John said. "You can use the pool during your scheduled times. The cover will be locked at all other times." Mrs. Taylor immediately objected. $75 is too much, she said. "Plus, we're already paying $10 a month for chemicals." But this is a one-time payment, Dave pointed out. And it's much less than what you'd pay to use the public pool all summer. Other neighbors started asking questions. How would the key system work? What if someone lost their key? What if there was an emergency? John and Dave answered all the questions patiently. Slowly, people began to nod in understanding. Mr. Johnson stood up. "I think this is a good solution," he said. "I'm willing to pay my share." "So are we," said Mr. Wilson. One by one, families started to agree. By the end of the meeting, 8 families had committed to paying for the cover. Even the Paddles, who had been unsure about the schedule, decided to join in. But the Taylors still refused. "This is ridiculous," Mrs. Taylor said. "First rules, then payments, now locks and keys. A neighborhood should share freely." "You're welcome to join whenever you change your mind," John said kindly. "The offer stays open." The following week, the pool cover was installed. It was a beautiful dark blue color that made the water look even more inviting when it was open. The lock system was simple but secure. John gave keys to all the families who had contributed money. He put a new schedule on the board next to the pool. It worked just like before, but now the system enforced itself. For the first time in months, John felt relaxed. He didn't have to worry about finding strangers in his pool when he came home from work. He didn't have to be the pool police anymore. The cover did that job for him. The families who had keys were careful and respectful. They followed the schedule and always locked the cover when they were done. They took pride in keeping the pool area clean. One hot afternoon, John was enjoying his private swim time when he noticed Billy Taylor watching from over the fence. "Hi, Mr. Miller," Billy said sadly. "Your pool looks really nice today." John felt bad for the boy. It wasn't Billy's fault that his parents wouldn't join the pool cover plan. "Would you like to swim for a while, Billy?" John asked. Billy's face lit up. "Really? Can I?" "Sure," John said. "Just for today. And you have to follow the pool rules." Billy nodded eagerly. "I promise. I'll be super careful." As John watched Billy swim happily, he thought about Mrs. Taylor. Maybe seeing her son enjoy the pool would change her mind about the new system. John was learning that being a good neighbor sometimes meant standing firm about his property, and sometimes meant showing kindness when he could. Finding the right balance wasn't easy, but he was getting better at it. Later, when Billy went home, he carefully locked the pool cover. "Thanks, Mr. Miller," he said. "That was the best swim ever." John smiled. Maybe there was hope for the Taylors after all. 2 weeks passed. The pool schedule and cover system worked better than John had hoped. The families with keys followed the rules carefully. The pool stayed clean. John no longer worried about coming home to find strangers using his pool. Each family had their special time. The Wilsons came on Monday evenings and always brought homemade cookies that they shared with John. The Johnsons, the older couple, used their time on Wednesday mornings when the water was calm and peaceful. The Garcia family brought their 3 small children on Saturday afternoons, and John enjoyed hearing their happy laughter. One hot Thursday, John came home from work early. He was surprised to see Mrs. Taylor waiting by his front door. "Hello, John," she said. Her voice was not angry like before. She seemed uncomfortable. "Hello, Mrs. Taylor," John replied. "Is everything okay?" Mrs. Taylor looked at the ground. "Billy told me that you let him swim in your pool last week." "Yes," John said. "I hope that was all right." "It was very kind of you," Mrs. Taylor said. "Especially after how I've been acting." John didn't know what to say. He hadn't expected this from Mrs. Taylor. "The thing is," Mrs. Taylor continued, "Billy hasn't stopped talking about how nice your pool was with the new cover. He said it was super cool how it opens with a special key." John smiled. "The cover is working well. It keeps the water cleaner too." Mrs. Taylor took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about what everyone said at the meeting, and watching how well the system is working. Maybe I was wrong about the rules and the payments." This was a surprise. John had thought the Taylors would never change their minds. "My husband and I talked it over," Mrs. Taylor said. "We'd like to join the pool cover plan. If the offer is still open." "Of course it's still open," John said quickly. "You and your family are always welcome." Mrs. Taylor looked relieved. "Thank you. And I'm sorry for the things I said on social media. I was upset and didn't think about how it would affect you." John appreciated her apology. It couldn't have been easy for Mrs. Taylor to admit she was wrong. "Water under the bridge," John said with a smile. The next day, the Taylors gave John their $75 payment for the pool cover. John gave them a key and showed them how the lock worked. "Remember to always lock it when you're finished," John explained. "That's the most important rule." The Taylors nodded seriously. Even the children seemed to understand how important this was. Soon, the Taylors were some of the most careful pool users. They always cleaned up after themselves. They never stayed past their scheduled time, and Billy often helped John with small jobs around the pool, like skimming leaves off the water. By the end of summer, even the families who had first refused to join the pool cover plan had changed their minds. Everyone could see how well the system worked. The pool was always clean and available during scheduled times. There were no more arguments or hurt feelings. One evening in late August, John was sitting by his pool, enjoying the sunset. Dave, who had helped him set up the pool cover system, stopped by. "Your pool looks great," Dave said. "And I've noticed there hasn't been any neighborhood drama lately." John laughed. "The cover system was the perfect solution. I can't thank you enough for suggesting it." "You know what's funny?" Dave said. "I was talking to Mrs. Johnson yesterday. She said the pool schedule has actually brought the neighborhood closer together." John thought about this. It was true. Families often chatted with each other as they were arriving or leaving for their pool times. Sometimes they even adjusted the schedule so children from different families could swim together for playdates. "The Garcias and the Wilsons are even planning a joint barbecue next weekend," Dave continued. "They met because of your pool schedule and found out their kids go to the same school." John felt proud. His pool, which had once caused so much neighborhood tension, was now helping build a stronger community. "Sometimes good fences make good neighbors," John said with a smile. "Or in your case, good pool covers," Dave replied. They both laughed, watching the golden sunset reflect on the calm blue water of John's pool. As summer turned to fall, the weather grew cooler. Fewer families used the pool, but John kept it open as long as possible. He knew some neighbors still enjoyed evening swims even when the air was chilly. One Saturday in late September, John noticed something interesting. All the families who had shared the pool during summer were gathering in his backyard. They'd brought food, drinks, and chairs. John hadn't planned any party. He was confused. Mrs. Wilson saw his surprised face and laughed. "Don't worry, John. We're not breaking the rules. We all agreed to use our pool times today for a special event." "What special event?" John asked. "A thank you party for you," Mr. Johnson explained. "For sharing your pool all summer." John was touched. He hadn't expected this. Everyone had brought something. The Garcias made tacos. The Patels brought samosas. The Taylors baked a cake shaped like a swimming pool, complete with blue frosting water. "This is amazing," John said, looking at all the food and smiling faces. As they ate, neighbors shared stories about their favorite pool memories from the summer. "Remember when Billy did his first dive?" Mrs. Taylor said proudly. "And when little Maria Garcia learned to swim without her floaties," added Mr. Patel. John realized something important as he listened. His pool had given the neighborhood children skills and memories they would keep forever. It had brought families together in ways he hadn't imagined. After everyone ate, Mr. Johnson stood up. He was holding a small box. "John," he said, "we all chipped in to get you something." John opened the box. Inside was a beautiful plaque that read, "To John Miller, the best neighbor in Oakwood Gardens. Thank you for sharing your pool and teaching us about respect." John felt tears in his eyes. I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Mrs. Wilson told him. "We just wanted you to know how much we appreciate what you did." "But I didn't do anything special," John said. "I just wanted everyone to follow some basic rules." "You taught us something important," Mr. Taylor said. This surprised John the most, since Mr. Taylor had been against the rules at first. "You showed us that good neighbors respect each other's property and boundaries. Our kids learned that lesson too, which is valuable." Mrs. Patel nodded. "In our culture, we have a saying, before you share something, make sure you both agree on how to share it. You helped us all understand that." As the evening grew darker, someone started playing soft music. The children played hide and seek in the yard, while the adults talked and laughed together. John looked around at his neighbors, now his friends, and felt happier than he had in a long time. Later, as people were helping clean up, Mrs. Johnson approached John. "You know," she said, "when you first made the pool rules, some people were upset. They thought you were being selfish. But now everyone can see you were being smart. You found a way to share that worked for everyone." John thought about everything that had happened since he built his pool. The problems, the arguments, the meetings, and now this wonderful party. "Next summer will be even better," Dave said, joining them. "We're already talking about having regular neighborhood events during shared pool times. Maybe a monthly barbecue or movie nights with a projector pointed at your fence." "That sounds great," John said. "I'd like that." As the last neighbors left, each one thanked John personally. The Taylors were the last to go. "We were wrong about you," Mr. Taylor said, shaking John's hand. "You're not selfish at all. You're generous, but in a way that makes sense." After everyone had gone, John sat alone by his pool. The water reflected the stars above. He thought about how his pool had changed from a source of stress to a center of community. John had learned something too. Standing up for yourself doesn't have to mean pushing others away. With clear rules and mutual respect, sharing can bring people closer together. He looked at the plaque the neighbors had given him. "The best neighbor in Oakwood Gardens." John smiled. It felt good to be appreciated, but it felt even better to know he had helped build a stronger neighborhood. Winter came and went. John closed his pool for the cold months, carefully covering it with both the security cover and a winter tarp to protect it from snow and ice. Though no one used the pool during winter, John noticed something wonderful. The friendships that had formed during summer pool days continued to grow. The Wilsons invited him for dinner every other Sunday. The Johnson children asked him to help with their science projects. Mrs. Patel brought him homemade curry when he caught a bad cold in February. They weren't just neighbors anymore. They were friends. As spring arrived, John began preparing his pool for the new season. It needed cleaning after the winter months. It was a big job for one person. One Saturday morning in April, John woke up early to start the pool work. When he looked outside, he was shocked. 10 of his neighbors were already in his backyard. Mr. Wilson was removing the winter cover. Dave was checking the pump system. The Taylor children were picking up fallen branches and leaves. "What are you all doing here?" John asked, stepping outside in his pajamas. "Getting the pool ready for summer," Mr. Garcia explained with a smile. "We thought you could use some help." "We know how much work it is," added Mrs. Johnson. "And since we all enjoy the pool, we should all help maintain it." John was deeply touched. Last year, he had felt alone in caring for his pool while everyone just used it. Now his neighbors understood that sharing meant sharing the work too, not just the fun. They worked together all morning. With many hands helping, the pool was ready in just a few hours instead of the whole weekend it usually took John. Mrs. Taylor had brought coffee and donuts for everyone. As they sat around the pool enjoying their snack, Mr. Johnson brought up an idea. "I've been thinking," he said. "What if we create a small neighborhood fund for pool supplies? Each family could put in $20 per month during swimming season. That would cover chemicals, minor repairs, and maybe even some new pool toys for the kids. Everyone thought this was a great idea. And we could set up a cleaning schedule too, suggested Mrs. Wilson. Each family takes turns helping John with weekly maintenance. John couldn't believe how things had changed. From fighting over pool use, they had become a community that worked together. That afternoon, after his neighbors had gone home, John received a special visitor. It was Mrs. Rodriguez, an elderly woman who had recently moved into the neighborhood. She had not been part of last year's pool drama. "I hope I'm not bothering you," she said shyly. "But I heard from the Johnsons that you have a nice pool. My doctor says swimming would be good for my arthritis. I don't need much time. Maybe just 30 minutes twice a week." The old John might have felt bothered by yet another person wanting to use his pool. But the new John smiled warmly. "Of course you can use the pool, Mrs. Rodriguez. Let me show you how our schedule works. And the lock system is very simple once you get used to it." As John explained everything to Mrs. Rodriguez, he realized how far he had come. A year ago, he had been frustrated and angry about people using his pool. Now, he felt proud to share it. The first official pool day of the new season was a warm day in May. John hosted a small opening party. Everyone who had a pool key came, including Mrs. Rodriguez. As John watched children playing in the water and adults chatting happily around his pool, Dave came to stand beside him. "Remember last year when you were ready to put up no trespassing signs?" Dave asked with a laugh. John nodded. "I was so angry then. I couldn't see any solution except keeping everyone out." "And now look," Dave said, gesturing to the happy scene before them. John's pool had become the heart of the neighborhood. But more importantly, it had taught everyone, including John, valuable lessons about respect, boundaries, and true sharing. As the summer sun shone down on the sparkling blue water, John knew he had made the right choice. By standing up for himself while still being kind, he had created something special, a place where everyone felt welcome because everyone followed the same rules and respected each other. His pool wasn't just his anymore. In the best possible way, it belonged to all of them.